Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor William Riley. I'll be the chair of tonight's meeting. This is meeting number 9 of the Planning, Building, and Environmental Committee meeting. Today's Monday, November 13th, 2023. I'm going to just quickly jump into things here. Going to look around the horseshoe here to see if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest. Not seeing any. We have a couple confidential matters to deal with this evening. The first one is at the recommendation that the next portion of this meeting be closed to the public to consider the following pursuant of Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. Actually, I'm going to back up 2 steps. I kind of got ahead of myself. This evening we had 2 regrets from Councillor Rayner and Councillor Bell. They're unable to join this evening, so they've sent their regrets. I do believe one of the closed session exemptions that is coming up, one of the items there was relating to one of the councillors, so that's going to be withdrawn. We will not be discussing anything about that because that individual is not here to present their item. So that being said, now I'm going to read as follows, that the next portion of this meeting be closed to the public to consider the following pursuant of Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. And the first item is Director of Planning and Building Brian Treble and CEO Bev Hendry, Planning and Building Department Staffing Update. It's a verbal update we'll received. The applicable closed session exemptions are personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees and labor relations. 2.2 has been withdrawn, so now we're going to go to 2.3, which is CEO Bev Hendry, and that's CEO performance review presentation. It's for our information, and the applicable closed session exemptions are personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees and labor relations. So I'm going to need a mover and a seconder to go in close. I got Mayor Ganang, Councillor Bradrick is my seconder. So all those in favor to go in close? And any opposed? None? And that carries. So we will return shortly after All right, welcome back. Sorry for the delay there. I'm going to bring it forward that this committee meeting now resume in the open session at the hour of 7:56 p.m. If I can get a mover and seconder. Councillor Bradrick and Councillor Chichuk. All those in favor? And any opposed? Not seeing any, so we are now officially open. All right, so I'm going to go back to read what we had there. So we just reporting back from item P7623, and that's the Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble, and CO Bev Hendry. Planning and Building Department staffing update, just a verbal update, so nothing to come from that. We didn't bother or have the councillor available to do item P7723, so nothing was discussed or dealt with there. And then item P7823, CO Bev Hendry, CEO Performance Review Presentation for information, and there's nothing to report from that there. So at this point, we're going to go forward with the meeting tonight. So again, my name is Councillor William Riley. I'm the chair of tonight's meeting, and I must note that any comments can be made from members of the public for a matter that is on the agenda by advising the chair during the request to address an item on the agenda section of the agenda. Two, that the public meeting may submit comments or written comments for matters that are on the agenda to jpaylove at westlincoln.ca before 4:30 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Comments submitted will be considered as public information and will be read into the public record. And finally, that this meeting will be live streamed as well as recorded and available on the township website. So for those of you who are already watching this, you already know this. And yeah, so I'm going to move forward to our land acknowledgement statement. The township of West Lincoln, being a part of the Niagara region, is situated on treaty land. The land is steep in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe, including the first Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The township of West Lincoln, as part of the regional municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. So tonight, I'm happy to report, it's a rarity, but we have no public meetings. And that is definitely a unique thing. I'm going to go around the horseshoe here to see if there's any change in order of items on the agenda. Not seeing any. We have no appointments as well. Usually when we don't have public meetings, we usually have an appointment, so that's we've got a pretty easy meeting here. I'm not seeing anyone in the gallery here, so I'll go to our IT to see if there's anyone virtually that wishes to address an item on the agenda.
Not seeing any, Mr. Chair.
Full crowd there, so not seeing anyone put their hand up too quickly. We're going to move forward to consent agenda items, which there are none. Moving forward to communications, which there are none. Very efficient meeting here. All right, so now we're into staff reports. First report is item P7923, and it's the Chief Building Official, John Bartle, and Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble, and it's an information report, PD 55-2023, and it's a parking enforcement for 2023-2024 winter season. And the recommendation is that information report, PD 55-2023, regarding parking enforcement for the 2023-2024 winter season dated November 13th, 2023 be received. So I'm going to need a mover and a seconder for that. I got Councillor Bradrick and Mayor Ganan. Any questions or comments? And if not, we'll go to my deputy clerk for the vote on the screen. Oh, Mayor Ganan.
Please, Mr. Chair, through you, I just wanted to clarify. We've read the report and we know this deals mainly with the snow issue on the streets, and
Correct.
so that's where we're predominantly looking. But I just wanted to make sure that on the record we state publicly that our bylaw is not being repealed, the current bylaw for the parking between 2 and 6 a.m.
Okay.
We're just putting emphasis on something else. And I think I had spoken to Mr. Treble about perhaps adding to that to make sure that people are aware that that still is on the books. So, Mr. Treble, if you would, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as the mayor and I discussed today, to make it clear to the public, the 2 to 6 p.m. overnight parking bylaw will stay in effect. Staff are choosing not to focus on that as the enforcement technique. However, if there are cars parked for long durations, extended durations, we can, on a complaint basis, deal with that anyway. We're simply not going to be going out if there isn't a snow issue in the way. But historically, if a car is parked for more than 12 hours in one location, we can deal with that in alternate ways. And so they can continue to provide the report of concern if there is a car that is causing them issues in a certain location, and staff can deal with that accordingly.
Excellent.
So thank you for that, Mr. Chair. Well, I just wanted to make sure, Mr. Chair, that any public who happen to be watching don't think that we've changed our bylaw. We're just changing the emphasis to allow help for public works to actually be able to plow the roads appropriately. So
Absolutely. No,
Thank you for that.
That's great clarity. All right, so not seeing any other questions or comments, I'll go to our deputy clerk to bring up the votes. All right, and you'll see that was carried. So we'll move to the next item, which is item P 8023, Director of Planning and Building Brian Treble, Information Report PD 58 2023, ongoing provincial land use planning changes. And the recommendation is that Information Report PD 58 2023 regarding ongoing provincial land use planning changes dated September 11th, 2023 be received. So if I can get a mover and a seconder for that, I get Councillor Braderick. I'm going to ask Councillor Trombetta to be the seconder for that. Any questions or comments? I'll go right to our director there.
No, that's okay. It shouldn't be dated September 11th. That's kind of
Yeah,
weird.
I was gonna, as I was like, that's on here, so I appreciate your, kind of catch there. Yeah, so we'll make that adjustment, because that should be dated today, which is November 13th, 2023. It's funny, because as I was reading that too, I was like, September 11th.
Yeah.
Like,
So,
such a big day. Go ahead.
Yeah, we don't want that to happen again. I was just wondering if the director's planning on giving.
Oh, your microphone, sorry.
Oh.
Counselor, if you can.
Yeah, I usually get in trouble for using it too much. I was just wondering if the director was going to give us just a quick overview of what it was that this is here, again, just so the public can.
Absolutely. He was just having his hand up there, so I think.
Oh, was
that's what
he?
was going
Okay.
to.
yeah. Yeah.
Sorry I beat you to it.
No worries, I'm glad you did. Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a report which is only for information purposes, but there are a couple of things to note inside this report. The first one is that the first letter is a letter that's addressed to the township, but is looking for a response from the mayor by December 7th, I believe it is, with respect to any concerns that may exist with respect to a concept of rolling back the modifications that happen to the regional official plan. It's very convoluted. I had a session with regional and area planners on Friday, and we're not 100% sure what they're going to do, but it looks like they're looking for input. And I'm guessing it's to give a chance for any sort of politics to be taken out of the decisions and ensure that they're made on the basis of good planning. I think that's kind of what's going on. So this minister has taken it upon himself to write to all of the mayors to basically say, give us correspondence. It says again, like the letter from last month, that the mayor does not need to seek input from council, but I know in discussions with our mayor, she's intending to keep you guys informed. Based on the meeting on Friday, I suspect there may be a couple of pieces that we will want to speak to. One of the modifications, it's not clear, I reached out to the region to get clarity on it, but one of the modifications relates to servicing of settlement areas, and it talks about only allowing for private servicing for minor boundary adjustments. And Fulton was an addition for rural employment purposes, which is not a minor boundary adjustment. So I'm seeking some clarity there, which might lead to an item of correspondence from the mayor. Another one that was discussed on Friday was the fact that the city of Hamilton has written, and I think the region of Niagara would like to kind of follow suit. They've written to say that all of these changes, the making and the unmaking of various policy things, are having an impact on a number of different reviews of work that are being done, such as the development charges work, which we're in the middle of. And so they'd like to have the development charges changes adjusted so that we can continue to get the development charge studies and some other studies covered by development charges, whereas right now they're proposing to take studies right out of the calculation of what a development charge should look like. So that's one that might also get added. and there is a third one which is escaping me, but I think it's something to do with environmental policy, as I recall. Anyway, we'll keep council informed of any letter that goes out under the mayor's direction. That was number one. And number two, it's interesting to note that in the official plan amendment, I didn't realize, I thought it was just amendments that were made in Grimsby and Niagara Falls for the purposes of urban boundary expansions, but it also includes land in Fort Erie and other places as well, which are probably going to be hot discussion topics across the region, I would assume, over the coming days. I understand the region is going to support their removal. I understand Niagara Falls is going to support the removal of the lands that were brought in there, and I think Hamilton is supporting their removals as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds, but clearly a slightly different change of staff at the top or politicians at the top is making the planning world interesting these days.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. Go ahead, Councillor. Nope, you just turned it off.
See that? I'm so quiet, I don't need to turn it off. Actually, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair, sorry about that. I guess I was troubled by the letter from Minister Calandra, and I thank him for sending out things early on in his position as the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. But the thing that worries me is they're looking for affordability. They're looking for affordability, and I have every expectation that our mayor either knows our opinion or would be sharing it with us before she made any kind of comments back. But this is talking about the fact that in order to make houses affordable, we're going to reduce development charges, force municipalities, I know this is my old rant, but force municipalities to take on more of the burden of services ahead of time. Whether or not they'll collect all of it, no, not any longer. But they're also reducing the size of parklands. All of those things will cost municipalities forever into the future. And if housing units are going to be made smaller on smaller properties, we're taking away private open space in your backyard, so you can't have a pool because you've got a 25-foot lot. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I know 120 years ago they built houses on those, but we better understand that. Yet the parks that these children would be sent to are going to be further away, or they're going to be smaller. They'll be smaller no matter where they are, and they will not have the pleasure of playing in their own areas. So street hockey and all the rest of the things that make Canada great are going to be returning to us. So we need to remember that, and that is because they're changing the way development charges are going to be collected and what we can ask developers to do to build communities into the future. So I'm just troubled. I know that we're doing all the things we are that Mr. Trevor has brought to the fore, but it troubles me that there's nothing wrong with smaller houses on smaller lots, but please don't reduce the cost, the parkland, and please don't reduce the amount of money that is there to build the infrastructure that has to be there to support it. If the minister wants to know what we want, I believe that all municipalities should be telling them what it is and where it is that the money's, the real revenue or increases in the price of houses are, and it certainly isn't in those two elements. Thank you.
No problem. And I agree. I think we want the new growth to pay for itself as well. We don't want to add any more to the tax base if we don't need to. Any other questions or comments? Oh, Mayor Ganam?
Just further to that, Mr. Treble has explained that he's working on that with his counterparts. We have a meeting on the 4th of December, so I would hope by then that we'll have something ready to say this is what we're sending, as we did the last time.
Perfect.
It doesn't have to be there till the 7th. We won't wait till the 7th, but that will be the goal, to have something ready before that meeting on the 4th.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Not seeing any other questions, I'll go to our deputy clerk to call the question. And to clarify again, the date was changed to November 13th, 2023. And that carries. All right, we'll move to item P8123, and it's another Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble. Information report, PD 57-2023. Township of West Lincoln Official Plan 5-year review, and that the recommendation is that information report PD 57, 2023 regarding Township of West Lincoln Official Plan 5-year review dated November 13th, 2023 be received. I need a mover and seconder for that. Got Councillor Chichuk and Councillor Trombetta. Any questions or comments? Not seeing or hearing any. Did you want to provide?
Mr. Chair, just thinking, perhaps just to make sure it's clear, the region got approval of their regional official plan amendment on November 4, 2022. And the way the Planning Act is written, lower tier municipalities have a year to come into compliance with that piece of legislation. West Lincoln is in really good shape in that regard because we did OPA 62 and 63 related to the urban work. And that puts us light years ahead of any of the other municipalities inside Niagara region. However, agricultural policy, environmental policy, climate change, and some of this other work has yet to be done. And November 4th is already behind us, which means we're not on time to achieve our timeline. So I wanted you guys to be aware of that. I have notified the regional commissioner, and she said that there is good news in the sense that there is no planning jail, so I can stay out of jail for a little bit longer. However, having said that, we need to get that work underway, and my goal is to get that up and running ASAP. And so it'll be something we're talking about over the winter months.
Perfect, thank you. Excellent. Not seeing anything else, so I'll go to our deputy clerk for the question. Excellent, and that carries. Okay, so now we're going to move forward to item P82, 2023, and it's a recommendation report, PD 56, 2023, request for policy considerations relating to backyard chickens. So I have the recommendation report, and I've got to bring it up here, PD 56, 2023, regarding request for policy considerations relating to backyard chickens dated November 13, 2023, be received. And that staff be and are hereby authorized to hold a public meeting at a future Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting on the request to consider the non-farmers and urban hamlet residents be permitted to, did I read that funny? Meeting on, I'm going to take a step back. That staff be and are hereby authorized to hold a public meeting at a future Planning and Building Environmental Committee meeting on the request to consider the non-farmers and urban hamlet residents be permitted to house backyard chickens, and that adequate notice be provided for such purposes, and that deliberations relate to details around restrictions, permitted locations, and etc. Feel like there's probably supposed to be a period in there. It's a little bit trickier to read. So I'm going to get a mover and seconder for that. I had anybody move? Councillor Braderick, Councillor Chichuk. Any questions or comments first from the committee? Not seeing, hearing anything. Did you want us to maybe speak to this real briefly?
I can really quickly, yeah. The reason for this report on the agenda, as you'll recall, is a delegation that we had a few months ago asking for us to consider the concept of backyard chickens. It's interesting that it's kind of a hot topic around Niagara region right now, in the sense that Pelham just recently deliberated and granted some form of bylaw approval, I think mainly for rural lots of an acre or thereabouts. Fort Erie was asked to give consideration to the process, and staff outlined in a report what it would take, the work to do it, and how they proposed to get input. And council turned it down and basically said, we're not even interested in having this discussion. I think in all fairness, it's worth having the public be granted the opportunity to speak. I think we're going to hear some very passionate pleas from some people and some caution from others, such as the farm community. And so, you know, we'll do our best to make sure that this is a well-advertised meeting and that word is out amongst all the sectors so that we hear a fulsome debate from the public before we proceed forward. As I sit here, I can see perhaps giving some deliberation to the rural lots. If you're zoned agricultural in the rural area, you're entitled to have some livestock, but if you're rural residential, RUR, you're not. Maybe there is some place that we can entertain as sort of a partial step towards the request. But anyway, so this is going to take some work. I know there was reference to some timelines, and this is the start of a process of consultation, and it will take several months to get to the point where staff are recommending any form of report, I would think, to committee.
Absolutely. I think that, goes without saying, the importance of ensuring that, we get as much information as we can about this, turn over every stone, and ensure that, we have not just meeting the need or the request by some, but ensuring that we're not creating any liabilities or issues along the way. So I know it's a long road ahead as far as the process goes itself, but certainly look forward to being a part of it and getting that information out there. I got Mayor Gannon and then Councillor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think one of the words that you said, or the couple of words you said, Director, about before we make any decisions or before the process moves along is really critical. I think if we were to be hasty about making any kind of a decision, there would be a lot of fallout after the fact. There would be people who would not at all be aware that it was ever being discussed and would want to have their say, either yay or nay. And so I think that we really need to do as good a job as we can, knowing how difficult it is to get information out to the public about a public meeting happening, and with the lack of a newspaper now, with just having one in our area, we're going to have to be as creative as possible about making sure that people do know that there will be a public meeting held, and in plenty of time for them to decide on what they want to say and be ready to come forward, whether they support or whether they're opposed. So, thank you.
Excellent. I got Councillor Broderick.
Thank you, through you, Chair, to the Director. I think that it's came up as an urban type of issue. However, I think it'll be very informative to those of us that live in the rural area who have thought about it in the past or are doing it already, that will become aware or are already now aware that this is something that is technically not allowed, and can make their appropriate decisions depending on what the outcome is. That's all.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, this is almost a question, I suppose, for our CAO more than a statement, but I know we were doing some consultation through, I think, the community center around communication methods. I'm not sure if I'm describing that completely right, but I don't know what the timing is on that. Will there be any guidance there in terms of how to get messaging out? I'm just curious about that, because I think it's critical that we choose all appropriate forums, whatever that's going
Absolutely.
to be.
Okay, through you, Chair Riley, to Brian. I don't know about the timing. I think, and actually, I might actually do a side glance across to Deputy Clerk to see if there's a call. We've had the request for people to give their ideas about the best way to communicate with them for probably about 6 weeks already.
I would think so.
So I'm not too sure. So it would actually sort of depend on when you want to do this as well.
I'm anticipating not before the new year at this point, so. Yeah.
So, but potentially, but yeah, I think whatever we have as input already might be able to assist with this. And I've actually just made a note of talking about this at SMT.
Excellent. No, and I know after that meeting, I had received a few emails, some in support, some in opposition, with very valid concerns and exchanges on all sides. So I think it's definitely going to be a community-wide topic, and I think we need to.
It's an issue in the rural area as well. I know, like, John is here because he's been communicating with some people in the rural area, and he's been trying to pass them off to Justin, but it's not working. Anyway, bottom line is around Boyle, I know there's interest as well. So it's going to be an urban discussion as well as a rural discussion. I think we'll have flavor from both, for sure.
Be reflective of the entire municipality and where it's
so.
probably best deemed appropriate and necessary and such. So, Councillor Chichek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to our Director. Yes, I would hope that we would not be holding this meeting before the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that's why an extended timeline can quickly eat into 6 months to a year, because to make it appropriate and to make it fulsome, it's going to take that kind of time. I sure hope this doesn't count as a secondary dwelling, though, for rural municipalities.
The chicken coop?
The chicks in the coop, yeah.
There you go. All right. Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any. I'll go to our Deputy Clerk for the vote, or the call to question. And that is carried. Excuse me, losing my voice there. That is carried. Get choked up. All right. So we're moving to item P8323. It's a recommendation report. PD 59 2023 Legion Villa Affordable Housing Development request to waive planning fees. That recommendation report, PD 59 2023, regarding Legion Villa Affordable Housing Development request to waive planning fees, dated November 13, 2023, be received. And that council direct staff to include an affordable housing community improvement plan in the 2024 budget, and that the pre-consultation fee, which has not been paid, be and is hereby waived, while the remainder of this request should await the outcome of the CIP process. So I need a mover and seconder for that. I got Councillor Broderick, Councillor Chichak. Any questions or comments at this time? Oh, I'll go to Brian first, or sorry, Director Treble.
No worries. I don't mean to belabor any of these reports, but in deliberations on this particular file, I guess my concern was that we need to have some sort of a protocol to follow such that we don't end up with all sorts of people lining up at the door with applications to waive fees without any guidance in terms of how to evaluate them. And not to say that following our neighbors is necessarily the right approach to good planning, but in this particular case, I think the affordable housing CIP is the right way to go, because that gives us a tool to consider reductions in fees and other options. It'll be more than just fee reductions that'll be part of the proposal back, I would suspect. But it gives us a mechanism by which to do a fair evaluation amongst all the applicants. So that's why this recommendation is there, and I've worded it such that I'm not shutting the door on these people being able to come back and make the request at the appropriate time.
Perfect. Councillor Chichak?
I would like that if we are going to waive the fees, that we talk about registered not-for-profits that are qualified and have a plan underway, because I don't want to see affordable housing, which is now taking on a whole new concept in the report you just brought before us, and they are built because of actions that the province may be asking developers to do. I don't want to see them lining at the door and say, okay, there's our pre-con meetings going, and oh, by the way. So what the province will come out with as affordable is important for us to see, because while I support and champion this particular application, I just don't want to see it happening townwide. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, no problem.
So the reality is there'll be a consultation process that will all have ability to put feedback into what the CIP should look like. So keep that thought in mind.
Excellent. And Councillor Broderick?
A quick question through you, Chair, to the Director, and I think I know the answer to it because it's not indicated on the report under financial implications. I assume that there is no current uploading or opportunities for us to receive any additional funding for these kind of applications through the provincial government?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not that I'm aware of. I have reached out to the region because they used to provide funding for studies, but I think something called the Smarter Incentive Program of the region is now gone, so there isn't even funding to help do the study. So I think we're kind of on our own. We'll have to come up with what the CIP looks like if council supports that, and then put a pot aside to help offset costs at some point, should we go that way. But no, there's really no uploading from the province that I'm aware of right now, but we'll keep our eyes open on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. And no other questions, comments? I guess I'll just add a couple. I agree. I think we have to, again, tread lightly with this. We open this door. It's not going to be so easy to close if it's, we haven't explored everything we needed to. I think it's important to, even for messaging purposes, to understand that waiving of fees doesn't just mean the service costs nothing. Those costs and that time and resource falls back on the tax base. So, right. It's great to throw around the term affordable housing when you're applying for something. And I'm not specifically speaking to this organization, but just in general, we have to be careful, because it's not that it's making it any more affordable. Essentially, you're making it less affordable for those living in the community who now are going to see an increase in their taxes to help make projects similar to these more accessible or more to a reality there. So anyways, okay, so not seeing any other questions or comments, I'm going to go to our Deputy Clerk to call the question. And that carries. Yeah, we're down to getting there. Okay, so we're on item P8423, and it's a recommendation report, PD 60-2023, Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2017-70, 2017-70, as amended, housekeeping amendment number 7, file number 1601-007-23. And that recommendation is, again, that report PD 60-2023 regarding Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2017-70 as amended, housekeeping amendment number 7, file number 1601-007-23, dated November 13th, 2023, be received. And that the zoning bylaw amendment, housekeeping 7, be approved in accordance with the attached amending zoning bylaw, and that no further public meeting is required for the consideration of this bylaw in accordance with Section 3417 of the Municipal Act. So I will need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Braderick, I got Mayor Ganan. Any questions or comments? I got Councillor Chichak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure that we understand what implications this would have on the removal of homes as new ones get built in rural areas, or the ancillary buildings and that kind of thing in rural areas. Because in urban areas, people are allowed to have 3 residences on one property, if I'm not mistaken, whereas in the rural areas, even when you're building a new house, you must pay a substantial deposit in order to build your house, which is like $50,000. And that is substantial and cost prohibitive to a number of people. So what does this do in the changes that you're bringing about, Mr. Chair, through you?
So through you, Mr. Chair, this changes the provisions to the urban residential, as was alluded to by Councillor Chichak, to allow for the 2 extra units in a variety of different formats. In the rural area, we have not made any changes to the zoning regulations as they exist right now. So in the rural area, you're entitled to have one principal dwelling. You can have a second principal dwelling if it is for the purposes of farm help. And then you can have a dwelling above a detached accessory garage. In the dwelling, you can have an accessory dwelling and a garden suite. Sorry, I knew I was missing one. And a garden suite as an option as well. So no changes have been proposed there because the changes of the province have focused on areas with full services.
Okay, go ahead. Still on.
So, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. And we have not done anything to intensify clustering. And the reason I say that is when we want farm help homes, which I've become very much familiar with, and normally means for temporary foreign workers or because we don't have enough people looking to work on farms now, we may not want it very close to the house. So that's the idea of not having them side by each, unless as a garden suite we put an atrium or something and we can have an attachment in a whole different house completely attached to the original house. If we want to have ancillary buildings, that's fine, but there was 2 provisions that troubled me. One was the fact that we were looking, the township was, at clusters, and the fact that all of the facilities on the property had to be on one septic system. To me, I need to understand that more carefully, and I turn to our director if it happens, but in some circumstances, putting that second septic system in is the only way to get the stuff to move downstream. I have a pool behind my house, and I would think that it would be very difficult to add on. I just put that in my head as an example and thought, how the heck could I do this if I wanted to? So I'm asking for clarity on that, and asking that we are not going to become so prescriptive that we are actually creating prohibitive measures in the rural areas.
So through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for that question, Councillor Chichak. I had forgotten the fact that there is one change that is proposed in the agricultural area, and that is to tackle the issue of the septic system. The desire still is to use one system where possible, but it's acknowledged that that is not always the case. So the language is broader now to allow for second systems in instances where that's the appropriate way to go. And in fact, we're having that discussion with a lady at the end of Patterson Road on Regional Road 20 right now as one example, and they do not need to go through any sort of a planning approval to get there, like a guy on York Road had to back a few months ago because it was before we had changed this provision. And around the issue of farm help, I know that one of the greenhouses on Young Street, I guess it was, has a farm help house attached to a greenhouse, and it's at the very back of the property, at the back corner of the greenhouse, as I recall. So that, I think, probably is kind of in line with what Councillor Chichok is suggesting in that regard, too. So that is a possibility.
I just think, thank you, Mr. Director. I'm worried because we are intensifying all the properties within West Lincoln. And larger farms are going out there with larger equipment to try and make the ability to farm more economically, more efficiently, and more sustainably. I don't know all those buzzwords yet, but I'll read about them. Yes, but there's also the fact that greenhouses are becoming far more prominent throughout Ontario, and some of the limitations are that of electricity available, so that the area of Leamington is now pretty much captured out until substantial changes are made to the Sarnia and the electrical generation down that area. And then there's all the thing about the lines. And West Lincoln is an area where that kind of property could in fact support greenhouses, which would in fact is a different way of creating intensification. And I really just want to make sure that we're not becoming prescriptive or prohibitive, because the next generation is not going to have the ability to get perhaps family farms, and it's going to be larger farms, and temporary foreign workers are going to be a common thing in this area. They are down below the hill, so it's coming.
All right, thank you for those. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, just not to belabor again, but just to confirm, I guess, my mentality is very much pro-agriculture. I want to support the agricultural community, and if there are changes that need to be made to accommodate agriculture, then I'd like to hear about them for sure.
Councillor Rayner's not here tonight, Mr. Director. It's okay.
All right, so I'm not seeing any other questions or comments, so I will go to the Deputy Clerk for the vote. And that carries. Thank you. And then we're going to move to other business. First item is item P8523, and it's a verbal update on Ontario Land Tribunal, LLT, Helen Zan, file number 22-00280. So I will go to our director.
If you can imagine, Mr. Chair, I'm going to speak in the past tense on this file for a change. It has been decided that the staff recommendation to allow for a small building envelope in the southwest corner of the Kazan property was appropriate and good planning, and that was supported by the OLT, who rendered their written decision within the last couple of weeks. I don't know if we figured out whether or not that decision had gone out to council or not, but we can certainly have a copy of that decision sent to everyone this week, just so you're aware of it. But so the good news is that our guidance and advice to the board was what was accepted, and that helps, I think, give Helen some opportunity to sell with a building envelope, but do the best we can to protect the farmer at the same time. So that's where that is.
How long has this one been on the books here? I feel like
7 years.
7 years. Okay,
7
so
years.
basically shortly after I got in last term. I know, that's great.
It's got to be almost a record, I would think.
Excellent. Okay, yeah, well, it probably feels nice to have that weight off your shoulder.
That is
Case to worry about.
a nice piece. Notwithstanding that, I'm sure that Helen's still not happy, but I'm sorry. It's it is a positive decision, and I think everyone kind of wins. So
Yeah.
that's huge.
It's finding that common ground, right?
Exactly.
So, all right, so there's no resolution there, so we're gonna move to item P8623, and it's Avertex Hydrovac hydrovac request. Again, Brian Treble. It's a verbal update, so I'll go back to you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure committee was aware of this. A few years ago, we granted site plan approval for a property north of Spring Creek on Industrial Park Road, just before you get to the abattoir and across from Big Country Raw, where they have some holes and I think there's some mounds of earth. And that's Avertech doing a dewatering process where they take the slurry out of the hydrovac trucks, dump it in these pits, and then let it dry or whatever they have to do, and then they haul away dry soil at the end of that process. I was shocked about 6 weeks or so ago when we received notice that an application for a waste disposal site was applied for, and I immediately thought, this is not good news. I don't know what's going on now, but it turns out, I've had discussions with Avertex and the ministry, this is simply a certificate that's required by Avertech to proceed with what they're doing. This slurry process is under provincial rules considered to be a waste operation, and it's the disposal of waste soil, I guess, is the way they must look at it. So no changes are proposed, but I wanted you guys to be aware of the fact that there will be a second waste disposal site permit in our industrial park, in addition to the one that exists on the waste transfer station of Sheldrick Modern. So this has similar language, but is a completely different situation, I think, than the one that caused major ruckus when I came to town back a couple of years ago. So I just wanted to share that for information purposes.
Excellent. I think I saw Councillor Chichak.
Thank you,
Hands
Mr.
up.
Chair, and I just want to make sure, this Avertech and others were doing this type of dewatering in the rural area, and there was quite a concern.
Yes, your neighbor Rudy was a culprit, yes.
Well, I didn't complain about it, but the point was that there was very big concern about the tankers that were coming back with the soil mixture, slurry, had proper certification from the site to here. The dewatering facility or waste area must be certified, but the product coming in also must be certified. Am I correct that this is the process by which this facility is operating?
From what I understand in discussions with the ministry through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that's exactly the way it's operating. Depending on the nature of the soil, will determine its location for final deposit, whether it's at the landfill site or on a farmer's field or wherever it goes, will be based on the sampling of the quality of the soil coming in.
But the water coming off that soil, which is going into the pit, is coming out of the soil, and if the soil isn't certified, that has caused, I just lived this dream with you once or twice before, so I want to make sure that the soil coming in is certified as it's coming in, that the water therefore won't have any hoo-hoo in it, and that the soil can go somewhere else if it needs to.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will confirm that with the ministry. Sarah, whatever her name is at the ministry, I'll reach out to her just to confirm that. At least it's a dream right now and not a nightmare, so. So let me follow up with Sarah.
All right, perfect, thank you. Not seeing any other questions with this. I'm going to go to item P8723, which is members of committee, other business matters of informative nature. And before I go around the horseshoe, I'm actually going to go back right to our director because he has one other item to speak to.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to get this on the record. And I've had discussions with a couple of councillors, so I'm aware of the fact that there is quite a bit of discussion occurring in the community with respect to our urban boundary expansion, some of the block plan issues and whatnot. And so I propose that I will bring back a report probably to council on the 11th of December when Bev is back in town, where we can have a fulsome discussion about some of the issues that I know we need to deliberate on from my perspective. And if you feel like sharing some of the rumors that you're hearing on your end, we can certainly speak to them in a more informed fashion as well. I'd like to just sort of keep you guys on top of things, but the nitty-gritty day-to-day stuff, I'm not sure you need to panic about as much as just making sure that you're aware of the fact that we're on top of the file and doing everything we can with proper guidance and approvals to move urban boundary forward and deal with an ongoing OMB situation with the likes of Phelps Holmes appeal. I said OMB, OLT, sorry.
Okay. I knew what you were
So,
talking about.
yeah.
Excellent. All right.
So that will be, I believe, Mr. Chair, unless things go sideways, December 11th.
December 11th, okay,
Yeah.
so we can expect to hear back then. So I'm going to work to the left, so I have, no comments, no comments. Deputy Clerk, do you have anything you want to add? Madam CEO, anything? Mayor Gannon?
Thank you. Just two quick ones. One, looking back to Saturday and Remembrance Day, one of the nicer weather days that we have had in a great many years. It was good to see that some members of council were there. It was good to see that Councillor Riley was working, doing photographs for the newspaper. And it was a different kind of service. They have a new group who are in charge, but it was equally moving for the people who were there. And so I just want to commend that and say how well it was attended. You know, often it's a school day and there are schools there and those parents come out and it's a big crowd. This was just residents and families, and it was a bigger crowd actually than the last few years. So it could have been because of the times that we're living in and the turmoil going on everywhere, but certainly there was an appreciation and support for veterans. And the other thing that I just can't pass the opportunity about is that a week Wednesday is our community tree lighting. And we're just starting to get more and more information out to the public, and so it does start at 6:15 at the community center. Free hot dogs, free hot chocolate, free conversation with your neighbors and friends, some carol singing, and some songs being led by the public, and another way to honor our citizen recognitions. So anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Excellent. Councillor Chichek?
I can't believe the mayor didn't say anything about the Christmas parade.
Well, I left that,
And,
because you sounded out and say everything.
so,
There you go. You're done.
so I want to say that, you know, when we were elected a year ago, we all talked in our comments as we took our oath of office that we would work collectively together to bring this community back to post-COVID, in post-COVID times to pre-COVID, where our community showed its caring and its love for each other and the love for West Lincoln as a home, and that we as members of council would work to try and foster that. And I don't watch those movies that are on from the beginning of November until Christmas, where the story is the same. You know, boy meets girl, they fall in love and live happily ever after. But I do want to think that with the tree lighting and with our Santa Claus parade on Saturday, we are becoming more active as a community that has activities that is there for children and old and young alike. And so our Christmas parade this will be the second year. It is a nighttime parade on the streets
Correct.
of West Lincoln. And I know this is all stuff that you have been part of, Councillor Riley, so I'm not stealing all of your thunder. But I just wanted to say that community spirit, I'm so happy to hear that it's coming back. I'm so happy that there were so many people at the Veterans Service at our cenotaph, or whatever you want to call it, in front of the pardon me, Legion, and that the tree lighting will again happen. So I'm just wanting people to pay attention to how much is going on and how much we have to share and come together, and I'll leave the rest to you.
Excellent. Thank you. I guess I'll just start. I just want to clarify at least one thing there. So on Saturday there, I wasn't working. I had volunteered my services, so there's no. Yes, I just want to make that clear. Once I had heard that they didn't have a photographer to get out in the area, I volunteered to make sure that was captured for them, and to have that represented our community.
Just so you
as well.
know, I'm protecting our quorum.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
We did not stand together. That was my point.
Yes, no, and that's fine. I just wanted to explain the importance it means to our community and those who have, fallen for ourselves here and then represented our community proudly. As far as the Santa Claus parade goes, I know the committee is very, very excited. I think it's one of those things where it's like we're finally at that, it's getting crazy when it comes to the organization and all the final details. So I know the anticipation of kind of getting it going and off the ground is, it's going to be a huge sigh of relief the day after they can have that done. But they've been working really hard and diligently, and we're seeing a lot of great support from some of our community partners and sponsorships starting to pick up and being able to beef up that standard we set last year as the first night parade we had, and this is going to be year 2 of that. So I know everyone's really excited, and there's a lot of buzz in the community about that as well. And looking forward to the tree lighting on the 22nd there on November. And I agree with Councillor Chichek and the mayor there in terms of we're trying to do everything we can to bring this community back together, back to normal times. And I think we're making great strides with that. I think it's only going to get better as we go. So hopefully we maintain that, and we're trying to do the best we can during the times we're given, and I think we're getting a lot closer to that normalcy that we had before. I think, as far as all the other committee parts go, I think that covers myself. I'm going to go to new business. I'm going to look around real quickly. Any new items of business? Not seeing or hearing any. So this brings me to adjournment. So I'll adjourn the meeting at the hour of 8:47 p.m. Thank you very much, and have a great night.